mute your mics or adjust your videos as you deem best. We are going to be taking questions at the end. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many as possible following the presentation. And also do note that this is for educational purposes only, and we ask that you speak with a healthcare provider or other professional before applying this information during the webinar. I just want to recognize our partners for this event. So again, I'm with Lifestyles Medicine. We're a not-for-profit that puts on community lifestyle medicine programs to help people prevent and reverse chronic diseases. We're also partnering with Pathways Lifestyle Medicine Clinics in Toronto. And I'm going to invite Dr. George Cho to just share quick words on why would a clinic hold an event about marriage and love, etc. Dr. Cho?
Hi, everyone. It's George. So we're putting on this event because we're realizing that a lot of patients that we're interacting with, a lot of them have stress, and the root of many of these issues is actually marriage issues and relationship issues. So we're happy to support Love is Medicine so that we can help educate people on how to have good relationships, good marriages, and so forth, because this promotes overall health, and that's what our clinic is all about. So we're glad to really support things like this, and we're really grateful to Ms. Starenkyj for offering her time to speak with our guests here.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. We're also partnering, many of our events, we partner with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This session is being hosted in partnership with the West Toronto Korean Seventh-day Adventist Church. You may know that Adventists are recognized as one of the longest living people groups in the world, particularly, especially in North America. And as part of their faith practice, they promote healthy families and relationships. So we're really thankful to the Seventh-day Adventist Church for partnering with us on this event. All right, so our topic today is called Women's True Desire, and we're really excited for this topic. Our speaker today is Danielle Starenkyj. And Danielle, I think I misspelled your name here, so my apologies. But Danielle is a philosopher, she's an author, and she speaks internationally all across the world on issues related to womanhood, sexuality, feminism, family, etc. So, and actually this topic is related to a book of the same title that she wrote. I'll put the link in the chat box where you could learn more about Danielle and also her publications. But they're also on the screen there as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn over to Danielle. Danielle, thank you so much for being with us today, and we'll turn over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be among you and to share that very special topic. And I want to say that I saw on your website that love is medicine. And I absolutely agree with that, because love is the most powerful healer of our miseries, traumas, emotions, and relationships. But poor, ill-fitting, unhealthy human relationships are the major and very often direct cause of a large spectrum of human diseases: debility, depression, anxiety, despair, disorders, infirmities, morbidities, and death. We have to say that love is the essential food on which the human mind thrives, stays balanced, and expands. Without love, our minds shrink, shrivel, contract, and deteriorate into nothingness. Well, I'm going to be direct to what is a woman's true desire. Her desire, deep, profound, inalterable, essential, crucial, is to be loved. Yes, woman's desire is a natural, genetic, physiologic, anatomic need to be loved. Her entire being is created according to the principle of receptiveness. From ovum, the basic sexual cell, to shapely silhouette, her body cries out its needs to take in, to welcome, to obtain. Now, what does it mean to be loved? Simply means to receive love. And there and then lies the problem. To receive, you need to be with someone who wants to give. Someone who wants to love. Of course, nature knows best. If women are habitated, I would say even haunted, obsessed with the need to be loved, men are in their genetic makeup driven by the need to conquer, overcome, and win. The entire being of a man is created according to the principle of definitive, prevailing, penetrating initiative. Think of the sperm, masculine sexual cell, fast, direct, determined, resolute, moving towards its goal, to reach the ovum and transform it into a new life. The founder of sexology, of this new 20th century science, Marion, having spent 20 years in daily contact with the sick and dysfunctional, wrote that the secret to a healthy, flourishing, reassuring sexuality is the following, I quote, "Man must be more of a man, and woman must be more of a woman." How do you achieve that? Marion adds, to that end, it is necessary to assert the existence of those two great biological truths, male and female, initiative and receptiveness. That's the way life is programmed. And love, when bestowed and accepted, sprouts, flourishes, thrives, and can become unending. Now, where is the problem in couple today? I would suggest that the problem is epigenetic. Genetically, we have needs and wants inscribed in ourselves. Epigenetic. In simple words, we know now that the environment has the capacity to alter our genes and to silence them. Now, of which environment are we talking? The problem now is the worldviews to which we have been exposed and that have altered our behaviors, masked our natural needs to love and be loved, and even turned them upside down, reversed them, and annihilate them. Never forget that we act as we think. It is very important when we want to build a wonderful love relationship in our couple to stop, understand what is our personal worldview on love. Let us linger there for a moment. we have to agree we are in a post-modern society, way beyond the concept our grandparents held dear. Think of the relativist, constructivist philosophy. Today, the social sciences and human sciences are framed in a mindset that says, I quote, "There is no absolute truth. There is not a world to discover. There is a world to construct, because the ultimate truth is not on the side of what exists, but on the side of those who it." In that philosophy, truth, reality are constructed by the mind, in fact, by my mind and everyone else's mind. It is in those quicksands that gender philosophies have germinated. Now, that worldview declares and asserts that there is no feminine or masculine essence or principle, no biological truth of male and female. I quote, "The biological sex does not, or very little, influence the personality." So in this worldview, I personally am the supreme value. I construct my reality and therefore my sex and my relations. Now, can such a worldview respond to, fulfill, realize a woman's true desire? We have to think of a second worldview. This worldview, unfortunately, probably is more familiar to you than the one I just presented. This worldview definitely disturbs love and prevents love to be in sync with woman's true desire. I'm speaking of the worldview of the media in general and the pornographic worldview in particular. This worldview has trampled on love, and I will only quote two authorities on the question. The first one is Dr. Norman Doidge, psychiatrist in Toronto, author of the book, The Brain That Changes Itself. He says, "Pornography influences young people with little sexual experience and with especially plastic minds in the process of forming their sexual tastes and desires. Yet, the plastic influence of pornography on adults, male and female, can also be profound, and those who use it have no sense of the extent to which their brains are reshaped by it." Dr. Doidge says that in consultation, man confined, spending more on the internet, looking at pornography and masturbating, they reported increasing difficulty in being turned on by their actual sexual partner, though they still consider them objectively attractive. In fact, more and more men experience now impotence or premature ejaculation because of that activity, pornography. Some men, Dr. Doidge keeps on saying, try to persuade their lovers to act like porn stars. He concludes, "Humanity is running a massive uncontrolled experiment, and we don't know yet all the results. There's increasing evidence that there is no free lunch. A social shift is occurring." My second quote is from Virginia Woolf, a feminist, well known of, for example, the New York Times, and she has written several books. And she says, a nation of masturbating people who are looking at screens rather than at one another, who are consuming sex like any other product, and who are rewiring their brains to find less and less abandon and joy in one another's arms, and to bond more and more with pixels, is a subjugated, not liberated population. End quote. The devastating truth of this massive worldview is that in this frame of thought and action, love does not exist. Tender love, respectful love, faithful love are barbarian words, totally foreign, meaningless, pointless. In this worldview, a woman's true desire is totally ignored, and we can say man's true desire also. Well, so then in which worldview can a woman's true desire flourish? The response is urgent. I invite you to immediately get out of pornography, based in aggression, servility, abasement. I invite you to get out of the constructivist worldview, which is a prison of the ego. In each of these worldviews, the other is absolutely optional, disposable, inessential, superfluous. In porn, I can take care of myself. All I need is a screen. In constructivism, I create my own reality, and it can change at my whims and fancies. Well, accept that I invite you to revisit the Judeo-Christian worldview. Why? Well, because we cannot negate it, but in this worldview, to love is a duty, a responsibility, a privilege, a source of accomplishment that requires talent, cleverness, ingenuity, intelligence, understanding, discernment. This command to love allows for the beauty of woman's true desire to appear in its preciousness, because when it is apprehended and cherished by a man whose true desire is to love, to give, to protect, to cherish, to serve, this intimate and urgent need of the feminine heart turns a man into a giant and a woman in an open well of joy. So, are we ready to learn now to love and be loved? Men and women, we all must learn how to love, so that love can become our best medicine. Dr. Ross Campbell, a psychiatrist, talks of an emotional tank that we all have inside of us. And we are at our best only when this emotional tank is full to the brim. This tank, when it is full, tells us that we are loved and gives us the passion to love. Now, how do we fill that tank? Men, women, adults, children, friends, doctors, anybody else can fill up these emotional tanks with only 3 things. eye contact, physical contact, focused attention. That's it. Now, if you think back, those three things are mostly absent from some worldviews that we spoke of. Now, what is eye contact? You look into the eyes of your spouse long enough to tell her or him that she or he has worth, merit, value, price, importance for you. Physical contact, what is it? You hold hands, your shoulders, caress the cheeks, hug your spouse, and you do it every time you see her or him. The affectionate touch is food for the soul. It tells you that you are real, that you're somebody, you are worthy of notice. It tells, I will never forget you. You are remarkable. Focused attention, what is it? You listen with your ears, your brain, your heart. You allow him or her to open up his or her heart, to voice his or her innermost desires, feelings, wants, needs, without interruption. Do not stop holding hands to look into his or her eyes. Just try it once. But it might be harder than you think, because for most of us, that's not how we were brought up. We received eye contact, but only when reprimanded severely. Look at me now. Look at me in the eyes. Don't do this, don't do that. We received also physical contact, but only when punished with blows, punches and kicks, unfortunately sometimes. We did not receive focused attention because the rule was we had to be silent, almost non-existent. But tonight, we are here together to heal of our unloving ways and to be transformed, changed, and remade by this miraculous medicine, love. In Quebec, we have a French poet, Gilles Vigneault, who sings, Qu'il est difficile d'aimer, qu'il est difficile. How difficult to love. It is so difficult to love. Yes, it is difficult to love. The wrong worldviews that we have embraced, often without knowing it, have kept us away from love. How many women now, instead of giving love, want to give love? How many men, instead of giving love, want to receive love? Women resist, oppose, refuse love, and decide that after all, they don't need any. Men not realizing that they can be a powerful source of love, become bullies in their love relationships, domineering, overbearing. This is why more and more couples are at war with each other, living in an arid desert, when they could every day take a walk in the wonderful, beautiful garden of perfumed roses. Let us pause and think. To start a war, We need to be two, right? But never forget it. To make peace, it needs only one person who is fed up with war and its casualties. You have doubts? Think of the domino effect. Think of the butterfly effect. The flap of a butterfly wings in Brazil is, some people say, can set off a tornado in Texas. Of course, this is an illustration of the realization of all things, not only big things, can have an impact on a complex system. So, your couple is at war? Sir, if the desire to love is in your heart, or lady, if the desire to be loved is in your heart, think of what tonight a smile to your partner could do, or a compliment, or a kind nod, or a soft caress, or a moment of attention, a kind look, a walk hand in hand, a simple request, please, dear, hug me. Try it. The change will be immediate, even if you don't see it. And if you keep trying, the change will be lasting. We can conclude in this way. I assure you that the couple is an incubator of happiness. If and when the gestures of love, eye contact, physical contact, focused attention are made daily, well, this will require that we get away from our screens. What do you think? The couple is a power of great magnitude. Set aside the me. Focus on the us. Man and woman are complementary. They have the extraordinary privilege of building a strong love that could endure into old age and even eternity. We have to understand, probably every day, that at the core of emotional madness in our world is the failure to give and the failure to receive love. I know you have questions. I will give you time to answer them. Being here, you know, this can be just the beginning of a discovery journey. Keep at it, and it will transform your life, because love is the greatest healer of our woes. Yes, love. This love that fulfills the true desire of a woman's heart and the true desire of a man's heart is indeed medicine. I want to close with just reading you a few paragraphs of my book, Woman's True Desire. In fact, it's the prelude to that book. It's the story that brought me to that point where I talk on that question. The story of Laura. There is a kind of landscape that never fails to remind me of Laura. Dark spruces outlined against a luminous sky, dotted with crows, their calls a harbinger of the spring to come. I close my eyes in the bracing air and see Laura. Laura with her long, blonde, gently tangled hair, showing the crimps from her habitual braid. Her red velvet dress a little tight around the waist, her feet a little too wide and a little too short, barely contained in her patent leather flats. Her heart at half-mast, and her pale blue eyes reflecting the utter anguish of her floundering soul. Laura was a shepherd. Oh, not a little bo peep, mind you, but a real American shepherd, owner and operator of a huge farm that she ran all by herself. She rode a horse, mended fences, cattle, seeded and harvested oats and corn, sheared the sheep, bought and sold her animals at the livestock auction, and attended fairs where her sheep won top prizes. Scarf on her head, wearing the same jeans, sweaters, and boots week after week as far back as she could, she was perfectly content until one fateful spring day. The snow had formed a thick blanket on top of the sheep pen, where she spent the night, helping the ewes give birth. Nearly 30 lambs had been born. She'd held them in her arms, warming them, stroking them, and putting them to their mother's teats, repeating in a voice grown weary with fatigue, "Dear my little one, drink and grow big, strong, go on, be a good lamb. Do it for Auntie Laura." Suddenly, after a good dozen times, the last two words began to catch bitterly and painfully in her throat. Auntie Laura. Overcome with dizziness, she knelt, straw, fists clenched over a heart that beat as though it would burst, and murmured through trembling lips, 29, I'm 29. She closed her eyes. The sheep crowded in, sensing her distress. By now she was sobbing outright. I'm alone, and I have nothing. I'm nothing, nothing but Auntie Laura. To my sheep, my farmhands, my neighbors, the people in town, the farmers at the market and the auction, the kids at church, my nephew and nieces. She propelled herself outside and leaned against the doorway of the stable. There, with the sun rising on her face and her feet in the mud, she was seized by a shooting pain that pierced to the very depths of her soul. Like a woman in labor, she cried out, I want to be loved. I just want to be loved. No sooner were the words out of her mouth when the force of her confession began to hammer in her brain, and she stumbled into the dawn, overwhelmed by the intensity of the desire to be loved, enslaved by the urgency of her need. The experience utterly transformed her. In just a few seconds, all the pride she had felt at being a successful farmer, all the self-esteem she had derived from running her own life, being independent, free and totally unbothered by domestic concerns, all the disdain in which she had wrapped her relationships with the men she met regularly during the course of running her, everything vanished forever like a desert mirage. Now she was cold and hungry and thirsty and hot and afraid all at once and all the time. A dull panic gripped her heart. Ultimately, on another day, in another spring, exasperated were she set out in search of love. Her quest took her first south and then north to a neighbor of mine whom she met through a dating agency. After a few short letters had been exchanged, she accepted his invitation to visit. She stayed with other neighbors and tried dating him normally. Then one morning they went out for a walk, things stood, and found themselves on the road that passes in front of my home. Laura, with your fine shoes, your red velvet dress, and your hooded cape on that cold spring day. The maple sap was dripping audibly that morning, and the sun reflected brilliantly off the crusty snow as the men ran from one tree to the next, emptying the pails. But Laura was crying. I know, because when she saw me outside of the house, she ran up to me and poured out the story I'd just told. When she was finished, she looked like a confused little child. I don't understand what's happened to me. I really was happy. Everything was fine. My business was prospering. Everyone envied me. My life suddenly be overwhelmed by this need for something more. I feel like I have failed twice. Once in jeans, once in a dress. You'd think that having spent so many years dealing with men, I would have known what to do. And then sensing that she wouldn't be in the area much longer, she asked me point blank, "What must I do to be loved?" She looked deep in my eyes, as though they might reveal the secret. And I felt that I would not be released until I answered her. This was a long time ago, but I remember telling her gently, "Laura, a woman doesn't learn to be a woman in the company of men necessarily. And being loved is not so much a matter about men as it is about understanding and accepting yourself as a woman." Laura did leave, but ever since then, whenever I see a woman in whose eyes the fire has died, I think of Laura, her cry, "I want to be loved," and her question, "What must I do to be loved?" And then my heart spills over with words of comfort, and I find myself repeating what I told her. Here then, more carefully considered and elaborated with time, is my answer to all the Lauras of this world who are torn with the same plea and tormented by the same question. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Danielle. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was very thought-provoking, and we have some very interesting questions that have been provoked, I think. So we're going to try to get to as many as possible. If you do have a question, please put them in the chat box. And I think we have around like 10, 15 minutes or so. So let's try to get to as many as we can. So Danielle, we have a question here from Angie. Thank you, Angie. She said, I think at the beginning you're talking about, well, your main point was that women's true desire is to be loved. And the question is, what kind of love?
Real man's love that want to love and give love. Because when you want to receive, you need to be with someone who wants to give. And the counterpart of the desire to be loved, it's a desire to love, and that's a love that men have
Okay.
or should have.
Sure, yes. All right. Just a comment here. I think you talked at the beginning at length about pornography and its effects on the ability to give and receive love. And just a comment here saying pornography use and its residual effects are today's new silent epidemic. I think there's some truth to that. We have a question from CHS. What do you mean love is a duty? So I think you had mentioned in your presentation that love is also a duty, I believe. Can you expound on that a bit more for us?
Well, in the context of the Judeo-Christian worldview,
okay.
We have the commandment to love. So it's in that sense that we say it's a duty. If we adhere to that worldview, we have the commandment to love. It's not optional. We have to love our neighbor. We have to love the other.
Okay.
In fact, we're invited to do it, and we can choose to do it.
Yes. Okay.
Or not.
Thank you. I think that's a very different way of conceiving about love than we typically think in the society. We have a question here from Sandra. Sandra, thanks for joining us today. So I think it seems like a clarifying question. Must I understand from what you are saying that men are the go-getters for love and women are at the receiving end? Is that correct?
I don't quite grasp the words.
Well, she's basically she's asking that, so what you are saying is that men are the go-getters for love and women are receiving. Is that correct?
I don't understand quite the way the question is given, but what I say is that men are initiator of love and women are have the privilege to receive that love. So
Okay.
it's an equal gesture. You initiate and you receive. Women can say no, that's for sure. There is a French proverb that says, men propose and women decide. So when a man goes after a woman and wants to offer love, it's her privilege or no. But they have the privilege to offer.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question here from GC. This is an interesting one. Why do you think we are seeing an increase in pornography use among young women? So I think there's an increase in pornography use among women now. Typically, we've associated with men, but now there's an increase among women.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. In fact, we used to say that women do pornography and men consume it. But now we know that women consume pornography too, and it has on them the effects of them refusing love, not wanting it, and be totally insensitive. We have women that say that watching pornography has really made them totally insensitive to even touch. And what grows into them is a total refusal of contact, of close contact, of touch. And of course, after a while, when you realize that it's a source of suffering, because you understand that you are totally isolated, you are out of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason I think is, the reasons, there is not certainly one reason, but I think that the result of a society that is so individualistic, where everybody has to do his thing, grow his success, his career. Relationships have taken the backstage. And loneliness is very hard on everybody, and it seems easy to fill it with screen. And then, since it's an addiction, we know that people are caught in the web, and it's difficult to get out of it.
Yes, yes.
But it's not impossible.
Yes, there's hope, certainly. Thank you, Danielle. We have a interesting question from Jacqueline. Jacqueline, thanks so much for being here. Question is, how do you know when your desire to be loved goes from healthy to an unhealthy infatuation of the desire to be loved? So it's kind of like talk about how do you distinguish between love, like wanting to be loved, and then kind of like an unhealthy infatuation with that desire.
Infatuation. Well, when you receive love and it's true love, well, it's love. Now, infatuation, it's you usually loving. And I think that many women are trapped in bad relationships because they are the one who decided to love. Yet there is this reversal of role. They don't want to wait to receive. They don't want to receive because they feel that's to be unequal and that's to be dependent. And so they do the first steps and all the steps, and they're the one that love. And in that, it's very easy to be abused. And yes, infatuation is finally a dead end. It's not love. Mm-hmm. It's not receiving real love. It's going after love that you have created in your own mind. Mm-hmm. Imagination, I would say.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. We have a nice comment here from Jackie. Jackie says, "Thank you, Danielle. I so enjoyed your presentation and your book." So it seems like she read your book.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, for being here with us. We have a question here. I think it's just related somewhat to what you just shared, Danielle. Question is, how do we protect young women and girls, example, our teens, in our society? So these girls have a powerful drive to be loved, but then they seek it from boys who are not mature enough to give it. So they're very young, then they want love, but then they go to all the wrong places. Boys are not mature. So how do you prevent girls from making that mistake?
Well, I think education is basic. We have our children are sexualized very, very young, very early. You know, we are in a very strange world. Women are told to have a career, to be independent, to do their thing, and very, very young, they are dressed up like little, I don't know what, and they are learned to be cute and to make people happy. So there is a contradiction in philosophies there. While very young, she's supposed to please, but she'll have to do her own thing. So I think parents have to educate their children. It's very important. They must not be, how do I say that, exposed to the medias. I mean, when a child since his birth sees 3, 4, 8 hours of screen, whatever that is in there, I mean, it reshapes their mind, it educates them, it forms them. So they should be protected from most of that. And in schools, education should be made.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Danielle, we have a question from Christina. Thanks, Christina, for being here. How does a woman learn how to receive love in today's society? I think maybe what Christina might be getting at is maybe hard.
It is hard.
Context, yeah.
And it might need some work on yourself. Because we have to understand, I mean, we're the product of our education. And I believe strongly in understanding, reading, listening to lectures, and to discovering the truth about your biological femininity. And then it's a matter of talking to yourself. You know, to receive, we have to say yes. To receive, we have to be open. To receive, we have not to be on guard. But to be like that, you have to be in a secure position. And I mean, it's a hard process because many women and men, the road to a stable relation is very long, and it's full of failures, shipwrecks. So it's hard, and I touch on that subject in my book. Of course, there is a whole chapter on that. We have to rewire our minds. Many women in our society, after several échec, how do you say that? Failure of in a relationship, they say, well, I don't want anymore. I don't want any anymore. I don't need it. I don't want to hear of that. And that hardens them. But then they have to say, I made mistakes. I was in the wrong relationship, but I still need it. And I'm going to try to have it in the right way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Danielle. And thanks, Christina, for that question. So just wrapping up here, Danielle, there's a question. Do you have a presentation that we could share with teen and college age girls?
Well, certainly, this presentation can be adapted to several publics, and it would not be difficult to do it.
Okay. And Jackie, I'm going to just put our email address in the chat box, and you can just message us, and maybe we'll connect you with Danielle if that's something you may be interested in. Okay, and Danielle, just to end off here, where can people get a copy of your book? Actually, a question just came in about that. How can you get a copy of your book?
Well, they can get it at our publishing house. We have a stock of books. So you just have to contact us at Publication Orient. We have a website. In fact, you could put the website on the screen or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
Publicationsorion.com. And we have some books in English. 2 of my books have been translated in English, Woman's True Desire and Menopause, A New Approach. And by the way, Woman's True Desire is in French, but has also been translated in Czech. A publishing house in the Czech Republic published a book in that language. So you can reach us at our publishing house, and you can order one or several books, and it will be a pleasure for us to provide them to you.
Okay. All right, wonderful. And I put the URL in there for anyone who's interested. You can also Google it as well. We'll send out an email if you registered on Eventbrite with the links there. So this is it. Thank you so much, Danielle, for that wonderful, thought-provoking presentation, joining us all the way from Quebec. So we really appreciate it. And want to thank everyone on the line for joining us. I want to share with you our upcoming event. It's on how African Americans are adopting plant-based eating at a very rapid rate. And we're going to be talking about why that matters. And we also hear some personal stories of how going plant-based has helped people. So it's going to be a fascinating talk. Go to our website, www.lifestylemed.org/online, and you can learn more and register there. So we hope to see you then. So thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Danielle. Thank you
Thank
for
you to
joining
you.
us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes,
Take
thank
care.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.